Like there's brutal things that happen that is just a matter of power. And, it's most of the time Machiavellians aren't, it's not in their interest, to be honest.
Right.
So you can't trust them, right? So they'll try to look like normal people while they're still plotting those moves. And I think that's kind of what happened with Russia, right? So you have, European nations like Germany who's like, look, like we need energy, and having some pipelines with Russia makes sense. And they did that, thinking that maybe we're done with invasions and stuff, right? This, I'm talking about pre Ukraine, but to be fair, they did take Crimea in 2014.
Right.
But they probably thought, oh, well, this isn't going to happen again. And Russia seems like they're modern, and they're not doing anything crazy. And all of a sudden, boom, they move into Ukraine, and now you're like, I didn't expect that to happen. Now we did expect it to happen close to it, like when they moved all their tanks like right to the border.
Right.
But like before that, we didn't really see that coming. And then they're just like, wow, they're just going to take them. And to be, to give the Ukrainians respect, most people thought Ukraine was done for. They thought they were going to be gone in a few days, kind of like how the Taliban took over Afghanistan.
Yep.
But no, like they fought back.
Still fighting.
But, yeah, still fighting. Well, it's going to be harder now,
right?
With Trump about to cut their funds. But yeah, like it, at any point in time, someone you thought was cool might just flip that on you, right? And you got to be, at least try to be ready for it. So yeah, it's tough. And here's the thing too, right? A lot of people don't understand like how valuable it is to take land, right? So here's a global politics is like chess, except when you take a piece, it doesn't come off the board; it becomes your piece.
Right.
That's what when I take your bishop, it's my bishop,
it's
right? And it's still a bishop; it's just my bishop now, right? And the way that power snowballs can run real quick, and all of a sudden, if you let Machiavellian actors just start taking countries, right? Every country they take, they get more powerful. And if there's no resistance to them, and you're a Machiavellian, and you could just keep taking more countries, you keep taking, eventually you're so powerful, nobody can stop you, right? And that was what we almost risked with, Hitler and Nazi Germany. Now, I'm not saying we're at that point right now, but the principle is the same in that if you have Machiavellian actors, especially large nations, like Russia or China or something like that, it's the same on the immoral basis if smaller countries do it, but it's less of a risk to the global system if Uganda does something crazy, relative to Russia. But yeah, when big actors start acting like Machiavellans and they just start taking stuff with military force, you can't ignore that, because at the end of the day, if they're smart. So, for instance, let me get back to the point I was trying to make about how valuable it is to take land. Right? How much is a house worth? 200 grand, 300, like depending on the house.
Right. Really expensive for someone to pay for it, but yeah.
Yeah, like hundreds of $1,000s. That's one house. How much is the neighborhood a house is worth?
Right.
Right? A lot of money. You're talking millions, depending on the neighborhood. How much is a city worth? A ton of money. How much is a whole country? And that's just the real estate, right? We're just talking real estate. Now, you got all the other assets. You got the natural resources. You got because if you could take the country, you could take their enterprises and nationalize them. So what's the value of all the companies in this place, right? Like, there's so much value to stealing a country. And here's the thing, like, the Machiavellian route, that the aggressive route is always the best route if you don't have morals, right? So, like, for instance, I could try to be as smart as Warren Buffett. I could try to run as many companies as Elon Musk. But if I could just rob them, well, then that's a lot easier. Yep. That's a lot easier way to go. So, yeah, like, it's always easier to take things if you have the force than it is to actually build it up. And that's why we need, police to, like, keep the peace at the local level. And I think conservatives understand that well at the local level. But for some reason, when it's the national level, America First is like, oh, it's fine. Just let them, it's not our business. It's like the world is our business. And I think that's when you let Machiavellians run free, and just begin to grow. Because Russia was doing that. They would take portions of Ukraine and then force Ukrainians to fight other Ukrainians. And because basically that's how it works. Like a lot of even their own people don't want to fight and kill Ukrainians. One, because they got shared history, right? A lot of them are the same people. But here's the thing: you don't have a choice, right? If you're a 20-year-old kid in Russia and you get drafted, it's like, okay, you have to go out there. And then when you're on the battlefield, I mean, you don't really want to lose the battle, right? You don't want to die. And if you desert, your own people are going to kill you way faster than the enemy will. So it's like, if you desert, you will die. If you don't desert, you might die. And now you're just in a situation where you don't really have a choice. And they do that with Ukrainians, right? So if I can come over, use my Machiavellian power to force you to kill your own people, and then use that to grow and take more nations, right? Like that's a recipe. Here's the thing. That's a great business. That's a great strategy if no one's going to resist you, right? Like if no one's going to resist you, you just keep taking and growing until you
And
get big enough to take and grow
take
more
over.
people. Yeah. At some point, you need to either face resistance or you just get bigger than any potential resistance and it's game over at that point.
What do you think is reasonable defense against a Machiavellian personality, or let's say someone who is damn near successful? Uh, like, what would be your defense system?
So the best defense is to not need to fight. That's the best defense. So what that looks like is encouraging everybody to stay in the civilization game, right? So if we can spread the culture such that it's not friendly to Machiavellian leaders, and so this would be like, hypothetically, if the Russian people were so opposed to the Machiavellian behavior that a leader like Putin wouldn't emerge, and you have just say like a regular European leader, still cares about the Russian people as any leader should, but isn't like out to just use military force to accomplish and change borders and grow power. Ideally that's the move. So I would say try to make it unfriendly to be, unabashedly Machiavellian, to try to discourage that from even happening. But once it has happened, there's no option but strength. You're not going to argue with a Machiavellian, right? You're not going to guilt him. You're not going to shame him. You're not going to persuade him. You're going to beat him. That's the only, or you're going to lose to him. That's that's the only option, right? When someone is really doing that. And so, for instance, Ukraine, they can't really beat Russia without help, right? Like there's nothing they can do, right? So if
Right,
we're not going to help them, they just
it's
lose.
over. Yep.
Yeah, they just lose, and you got attacked by Machiavellian, and it's game over for you. That's life. Welcome to the jungle, unfortunately.
Yep.
Now, what do we do, right? As in the United States, do we let Putin do that? And my angle is this: bullies, including Machiavellians, they don't like to fight. They don't like to fight. Um, so fighting them is valuable even if you lose, right? If I walk up, to say it like you're in school and then there's just a kid who wants to play. The bullies don't bully each other usually, right? It's not like the
Right.
big kids mess with the other big kid. Like they
Right.
mess with the weak kids is who they mess with, right?
Right.
So if I walk up to some kid I think is weak and I'm like, hey, I push him down, I laugh at him, give me your lunch money, and he cries and he gives me his money. It's like, all right, now this is how it works, right? This is a guy I can go to take his lunch money every day, right? Now, if I go to that same kid and, he punches me in the mouth, and let's say I beat him up after that, right? But I'm going to know, like, tomorrow, I don't want to get punched in the mouth again. No, I'm going to go mess with another kid is what I'm going to do. I ain't going to mess with him. I'm going to mess with another one. So I think that even like resisting Russia, even if Russia wins in the long run in Ukraine, even if they do, the fact that we showed them that it's going to be costly, like we're going to make it costly for you to act this way, that is much better than nothing, right? Because if we do nothing, or almost nothing, like we did in 2014 when they went in and took Crimea, then that Machiavellian just goes, oh, well, they don't really care, I'll just take all of Ukraine, and then we'll see what other non-NATO countries we want to get to next, and what they even are they even willing to fight and defend NATO. Now here's the thing: Article 5 calls us in, right? But if they smell weakness, if they smell, America first, it's not our business. We don't want to, because what if, he starts a war with NATO, and then, we fight Russia, now all of a sudden it's Cold War again. We might get the nuclear weapons, and if we're afraid of World War III, well then maybe we just don't defend, right? If he senses weakness like that, then he moves, right?
Of
And
course,
that's the thing about a Machiavellian is, and here's the good thing about a Machiavellian. The good thing about the Machiavellian, and
electing
and,
their
and
interests.
they're predictable.
Yep,
They're entirely
always.
predictable because you know where they're going. They're going
Yep,
towards their self-interest.
yep,
And if it doesn't make sense for them, they probably aren't going to do it. Right.
yep.
And here's the thing, right? And that, like I said, how valuable it is taking country. If imagine you're Vladimir Putin, right? And your objective, there's no morals that are going to impact you, right? You're just thinking about the well-being of Russia in the long run. It's like, if I can steal Ukraine back, and the West is going to get mad for about 3 years, but then I'll have a new country for the rest of time.
For the rest of the time, big and
That's a
stronger.
good deal.
That's a good
That's a
exchange.
great deal,
And I'm gonna
right?
do it.
100%. That's a good deal to do, right?
I'm gonna do it.
Especially again, because if we just get tired, of supporting them, we get tired of the money, we get tired. It's like,
What's happening now?
exactly, which is already happening, right? It's like, so I got to go through 3 years of annoyance, and I get a whole country for it. Easy deal, easy 100%. If I don't have to go through any resistance, that's why haven't I did this yesterday,
Right.
right? Or the opposite. If I lose customers, right? If the sanctions, if no one's willing to work with me ever in the future because I just did this, then is it really worth it? Maybe not, right? And that's where every country has an incentive to keep to make the You're not going to stop a Machiavellian for being a Machiavellian. That's impossible. But what you can do is make it not in their interest to behave like it, right?
Right.
So if we, all commit not to buying Russia gas, if we found a way, imagine we found a way to stop China from buying Russian gas,
No.
right? And it's like,
Right.
so you got, some land in Ukraine, but now nobody's buying your product and you're starving out. That would have been a horrible decision for Putin in that case. Now we're not going to achieve that, but at least we resist it, right? And so I think that in terms of, that's a long way to kind of answer your question of what you do. There's not much you can do besides beat them, try to encourage a culture such that outright and blatant Machiavellian behavior is not, accepted. And at the end of the day, try to make it not in their interest to do what they are willing to do.